Hello again, everyone. This is me, Nick Michalak, and the Immaculate Steve Frazier.
Oh, immaculate. I don't know if that's accurate, but thank
we're
you.
dealing with a film with religious weird nonsense, so whatever.
It's nonsense, all right.
There's nonsense. Because it's not all great Stephen King adaptations, so we'll take a little bit of a dip here for Children of the Corn.
Yes.
The original film is the only one we're ever doing.
Yeah, I mean...
Because there's 10 other films in this franchise.
The rest of them go in the same locked cabinet as the Nightmare remake.
Yes, go away. So, guys, if you have a copy of the 1984 original, you can switch on your subtitles and then get your timestamp over to 0 to sync up with our commentary, which Joe will do with a short countdown here. So, in 3, 2, 1, play.
Continuing our little Stephen King adventure here.
Yes.
Which is fun.
Mm-hmm.
I love this kind of avenue that we're traveling down. We do have a playlist we were just talking about now. We have enough for a playlist. So that's it. Gatlin Productions. Gatlin is the name of the town in this show here. So which means that they created a production house.
Yeah, like they did with like some of the Friday films and whatnot. It's like, okay, Friday, whatever fucking Friday films or the god hell they put together. Fuck all.
So this is one of those cool opening montages, kind of like in Halloween 4. Yes, that has like a beautiful opening. Now, I mean, this is cool.
Yeah,
I love the imagery. I love the music in this.
Yeah.
This is one of those movies that I want to love. And every time that I watch it, I'm like, okay. And it's always long enough in between views that I'm like, all right, maybe I don't remember correctly. Maybe this is actually like a great film. And what I'm wrong about is that it's a great concept.
Yes.
And there are so many problems with it, and then at the end it's just ridiculous.
And again, the fact that they...
You had an issue with this narration?
Yeah, I was posting on social media, it's like, I just think, just the fact that I don't think the kid's very good. It's just a weird vibe to go off. It's like you're trying to set up a horror movie, and you have this little, I don't know, 8-year-old kid or what the hell, who's not all that talented of an actor trying to do this compelling voiceover narration. It just seems tonally weird to me. And this apparently, like, this kid and the other little girl aren't part of the original story.
So Courtney Gaines that's Malachi.
Yeah, the tall one. Yeah, redhead.
I think that's Malachi.
Yes.
So here's where it gets interesting. Not here in this movie, but so great imagery too on little Isaac. So this movie is based on a short story that Stephen King wrote as part of a one of those books collections of short stories that he's put out numerous times.
Yeah.
And this one, I believe it's from the same collection that had The Mist in it, and a couple other ones.
Yeah, I think I saw a trivia beat saying like they actually have like on the dashboard of the car, it's actually sitting there. It's like Night Sky or something like that.
Night Shift.
Night Shift. Yeah, Night Shift.
Yes, so that is the book that this comes from. The entirety of the story is 39 pages long. Good coffee. Cheers to you, lady. This kid is awesome. I don't remember the actor's name. But
John Franklin's not actually a kid. He's 24.
Right.
He has a growth hormone disorder. So he's still probably like, I don't know, 4 foot whatever.
Yeah. So he and Courtney Gaines do convention appearances.
He can pass for that very easily. That's why he got these roles.
Ooh, a sickle.
I mean, this is...
I mean, it's kind of cool, right? I kind of like the idea of just butchering everybody. Now, I don't know why this kid, straight out of Oh yeah, the hand and the I
slicer.
love it. Slice it right off.
Slice it thin. The taste is nowhere to go.
Wow, they're
Kramer
just.
and his meat slicer.
I love
Seinfeld.
it. I love it. Anytime you can get a Seinfeld reference in there. R.I.P. to the coffee. That guy's still moving. So Franklin and Courtney Gaines still make convention appearances regularly together.
Yeah.
And
I get that, yeah.
they look identical. They look older.
Yeah.
But they're still like.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not like those guys that are young and then they get old and they're fat and bald and you're like, oh wait, who are you? Yeah. These guys look exactly the same.
Yeah,
just
if you see Larry Zerner from Friday 3, it's like, yeah, he's a lawyer now, but he barely knows him because he doesn't have the hair no more.
You would never know, right? So, this story that is 39 pages long, had like all of this cold open, as it were, not in the book.
Okay.
None of this is in the book.
A lot of it has been taken out of someone's thin air.
Well, that's the thing, is that if I'm remembering correctly, Stephen King actually wrote a screenplay.
He wrote a screenplay that was very kind of one-to-one from the novel, but
expanded because he needed
expanded, but
and they didn't like it, so they...
Well, the one thing I saw was, like, the first act is just the Peter Horton and Linda Hamilton characters. It's just them in the car, period, for, like, the first act of the film. And it's like, this doesn't work. You don't understand the language of film yet. We got to throw this out. I mean, do you really want to be the person to tell Stephen King you don't know what you're doing?
Well, so in Stephen King's defense... Oh, here's the idiot that we got to lambast later on. And so the novel opens with the two characters driving down the road, and I believe we're going to get to the scene here in a minute where they hit the kid on the side of the road.
Yeah, a little while.
Oh, in a little while. That's where
it's a bit of a while.
That is where the short story opens.
Okay.
Is them driving down the road, and they are arguing or distracted or whatever. Yeah, they're arguing. Like their marriage is breaking up, basically.
Okay, and you don't get that vibe here at all.
And they basically dislike each other, and they hit the kid. That's how the story starts.
They're arguing, and then they're not paying attention, and then
right.
It doesn't go down the same way in the film. No.
And so, in Stephen King's defense, that's where he started his screenplay.
Right. Sure.
And this movie came out in 84, you said?
84, March of 84.
Okay, so this is prior to Terminator?
It's about 6 months earlier, 7 months earlier.
And I'm not real familiar with her filmography.
Prior to this, no.
Was she in anything? I mean...
Nothing I'm aware of.
Okay, she didn't have like a breakout role.
I mean, she said in her interview she was 28 at the time or so. But she still referred to herself as a young actress, so she might not have had a whole lot of traction before this.
Like young in a career, not young in age.
Yeah,
Got
early
it.
on.
Well, she is very striking, her...
Oh, yeah, I mean, they really liked it. Let me see if there's something here.
He is not striking. I don't... But I guess that late 70s...
TV series, TV movies, that's basically all she was doing.
MD in My Darling. I like it. Subtle. Yeah, this is... Like, how do you take 39 pages and go, well, we need to be true to that, and then we also need to expand?
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Now...
She's no Whitney Houston.
Well, absolutely not. Now, this is supposed to be his birthday present? Is
I guess
a striptease to this song?
It's not even that much. It's just...
I mean, I guess
I've never even heard this song before, so...
if she's going to get naked at the end of it, then I guess it's worth it. That's different.
It's not getting there.
Unless they just don't show it.
I don't know. You had no problem with the Terminator doing a little something.
Well, no. But yeah, that entire backstory, and it said 3 years prior. Okay.
Yeah.
And also, they already added in this element of like the little girl like drawing, and there's like almost like a psychic connection. Kind of.
Oh boy.
I've
been there before.
Well, I know.
Psychic connections to weird cults.
Yeah, like what the hell?
Yeah.
And
People writing Halloween 5 were just watching this on a loop at the time.
That's the thing. That's where they got it.
And then they made a big mistake on that.
Right. So, you're saying, who are you to tell Stephen King that he's doing it wrong?
Right.
Well, clearly they did, because they went with this other guy's draft. And
yeah.
So here's where our novel... Go ahead.
The weird thing is, okay, you kick him off, but you still want his name attached. They paid him an extra $500,000 to use his name in the marketing, which cut into the budget of the film, which is only $1.3 million.
That's still a lot of money in 1984.
But it still required them to cut a lot of scenes and a lot of effects from the entire film at the end of the day.
Well, I feel like had they just written a better story,
sure,
that might have.
And I'm sure if they
there it is, night shift on the that's the.
I'm sure if they had used King's thing and maybe collaborated with him more, maybe he wouldn't have asked for so much money. So you kick my kick my screenplay out, but you still want to use my name. Well, now I'm going to kind of gouge you a little bit.
Right. I mean, wouldn't you?
Sure.
And by this point the book came out in I think 77 or 78,
something around there. Yeah.
By this point, 84, he's already got 10 to 12 hit novels. He's already had several made into feature films. Yeah. Carrie, The Shining.
Yeah, this is most of the ones we've already talked about. Dead Zone and Christine and
right. Like at this point, Stephen King is becoming like Stephen King, the proper noun.
He's a brand name.
Right. And what you were saying about characters in the story, you're kind of correct. There is about 36 pages into the 39 pages, there is reference to both an Isaac and a Malachi.
Okay.
However, there is a different character that he describes as a tall redheaded character.
Okay.
But that's not
Malachi.
That's neither Isaac nor Malachi, but they combined those characters.
Folded it in.
Right, which is fine. That happens.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with it. And it's in the story, it is, like I said, it opens with them driving down the road, dissolving their marriage, and they hit the kid.
Yeah.
And it isn't until later on that they kind of figure out that he had been trying to escape, and that I believe his throat was cut or something.
Yeah. That's what happens.
Okay, so that's here. I haven't seen this in a while.
Yeah.
So the people that are making the movie thought, oh well, as opposed to that being a reveal later on, let's just show it and pad the screenplay up front.
Yeah.
The book is gone.
Yeah. Wanted to mention we got an older Blu-ray, not the Arrow version, but the subtitles on this thing, they keep misspelling Job's name.
Oh, really?
They keep pointing Joby.
Why? Joby? Why?
Yes. Kept annoying the crap out of me. Hopefully Arrow corrected that. They have a little higher standards to fix these things.
So Arrow is one of those boutique film distribution media companies, and they have really quality stuff. And I love collecting them in Screen Factory and whatever. But like they almost got me on like the sexy packaging and the whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait,
But
this
then
looks.
you see the price tag.
Well,
It's like
I'm like,
$35.
I'm like, ooh, I can get Children of the Corn for $20, and it's the fancy one. And I'm like, wait a minute, do I really want to spend $20 on this pile of garbage? And I always talk myself out of it because, like, this is a movie again. Like I said, I want to love it. I love the concept. I love the imagery.
Yeah.
The friggin' concept art that they came up with the red and the sickle is friggin' beautiful.
Yeah.
It's iconic. I think, like, the whole concept of a child cult and, like, all of it is really cool. But there's just not...
And they did a remake in 2009. I was just reading a synopsis, and they seem to have kept with the original King ending instead of what they did here.
Okay.
So
now I'm not real.
We'll get there in about an hour.
I've never seen that one.
No, I didn't. I just knew I was aware of it. I figured, hey, I know there's a change made, so let me see if they did it the other way, because the remake was directed by the guy who produced this one.
Oh.
So, like, what was it, 25 years after the fact?
Now, how did the assailant know where to find this kid?
Sure.
In the middle of the cornfield. Although maybe the god directed him there.
Sure.
Or whoever, you know. And again, this movie starts off so, like, normal. And this is a great example of a Stephen King trope where ordinary people are doing ordinary things and get subjected to a supernatural situation that they don't normally believe in but are forced to believe in.
Yeah, here we go.
And, I mean, great.
That's a nice dummy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they really rolled over the prick. Like, King is the master of so many things, but one of them being... let's write a story about normal people doing normal things, and then all of a sudden weird shit happens that nobody believes in, but like they have to because it's happening to them.
Right.
And again, as I've always said, my favorite kinds of horror movies are the ones where, like, it could happen to me. And if it could happen to me, then I'm invested in the characters. And I think this is brilliant. You know, like, I'm a traveler. I know you're not, but I'm a traveler.
Yeah.
I've driven down roads such as this many times in my life, and at any point, somebody could jump out of the corn. Like, you don't know what's in the corn.
I've driven down even, like, really dark roads, like...
Right.
And stuff like that, which are, like, forests on both sides. You got to keep aware. It's like, is there a deer around here somewhere? I got to...
Exactly. And, you know, this is a very... compelling first act.
Yeah.
Which it's interesting because in screenplay structure, the first act, quote unquote, in that you establish a main character and you establish an objective. And there's a couple other things in there too, but those are the main ones, right? So once you have a main character, and once that main character has an objective, which doesn't necessarily have to be adversity, but
second act.
But
that strikes the second act going,
right? But they have to have something that they want to accomplish. That kind of is the end of the first act, and when you have a cold open like we had here, it kind of blurs that line of like who's the main character?
Right.
Is it these kids that are killing everybody? Right. Or and now we're in, you know, like
right. Because we have them established as protagonists, classic protagonists, but they don't really have an objective. They're just
not yet.
They don't have an objective yet.
But
this also feels like, okay, this is kind of like, okay, this is where the second act kind of would start with them hitting the kid. That's where the plot development would go on. So it's a little...
Oh, now see, it's very blatant here that old boy's out in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Now, in classic screenplay structure, in theory, you want about 20 minutes for your first act.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
You want about an hour for your middle, and you want about 10 minutes for your third act, which gives you 90 minutes. Now, granted, you can play with that a little bit here and there. Normally, it's the middle, the second act that's the longest and the hardest to write.
Right. Yeah,
because
definitely.
Almost anybody in the world can write a first act. Okay, anybody that's listening to this right now can come up with a scenario where a character has something happen to them and they're off on a journey or whatever. That's the easy part. Like I could sit down and write 10 first acts right now. The middle part of what happens next. How do you get what happens? That's the hard part.
Oh yeah. I've got this old screenplay. It's like 15 years trying to figure out. The second act is so just over bloated with plot points. I can't clear it out.
Right.
I can't figure it out. There's just nowhere to go with it.
And that's
part
part
of the... it starts and where it ends, I can't figure out anything in the middle.
This is part of the problem when you adapt a story into a movie. Because novels don't necessarily follow the same...
Right.
It's not a math formula like a screenplay.
Right.
So, you can kind of... Stephen King kind of...
You can ruminate for a chapter or two here and there.
Right. Or you can just slice and dice and say, I'm going to write a story... and in this particular case, it does have a beginning, middle, and an end. Yeah. That is all right. Bad. They hit the kid. They go into town. They investigate. They figure out the cult, and then the kids attack them, and it's over. You have to say, okay, we're going to go into town, and then other stuff has to... Like the padding the second act, much like your plight, is the reason that this movie's not really very good is because they couldn't come up with good stuff to happen in the middle.
Right, because going short story or a short film, you're also not entirely adhered to 3-act structure. Sometimes, like a short film, you just got to kick out like the first act, and it's like you almost got to start at this, like the last second of the first act and jump into the second and wrap up the third real quick.
Well, and that's part of the, sometimes you'll watch a short film and it's all first act, and then you're like, oh, it just left you kind of blah, because it didn't really develop.
Right. It's a very difficult art, and trying to take a short concept and expand it to a longer one is just the hard part to, you have to find there's certain elements in there that have meat on the bone to flesh out.
Right.
You have to find deeper themes, or you can find other conflicts or ideas that kind of just have the characters grapple with as the story goes on.
And it should be a natural progression of this happens, and because of that, the next thing happens. And it really should feel like a domino effect. And if it doesn't, then you're not writing a good story.
And then that happens.
Right.
Instead of
because of that.
Because of that.
Right. So
sort of cause effect.
Cause and effect. And when you just start writing in, then this happens and then this happens.
Exactly.
Then you're stretching, and that's when you end up with a bad movie. And I kind of feel like some of this is, and then this happens.
Right. A little bit.
$13,100 is awesome, because they're kids, right?
Yeah,
and kids don't have a concept. They don't have a concept, and there's no adults around to teach them.
Sure. Money don't mean anything in this town anymore.
Right. And again, all of these are great concepts, and sometimes, and I've been guilty of this too in my screenwriting, is I'll come up with a scene.
Right.
Or I'll come up with a concept, or I'll come up with something, and you work so hard to work that in to to the greater arc without purpose, just because you liked it and you're like, yes, it's a great scene and I want to make it work and I want to make it fit in.
It absolutely does not
work. And
it
does not work. You cannot write a screenplay that way.
No,
and we've both been victim of it.
Oh yeah,
so many times.
Again, with that screenplay I've had around for ages, it's so hard to divorce. If you've been working out for a long time, it's like it's so hard to divorce yourself from certain ideas and things and stuff like that. It's just like you can't do it no more.
Now, here is where so one of the elements of a first act is you have to have some sort of event that takes place that forces you to make a decision, a catalyst to start you on your journey. And this is the inciting event.
Yes.
They've hit the kid, and now we have main characters, and their objective is to drive him to report it and get to civilization and like report it to the authorities.
Yeah.
It's not the strongest objective, but it'll do.
Yeah.
It'll do. And meanwhile, we've got these two who are ruling the roost here, and we don't necessarily know what their story is.
Right.
Which is kind of cool.
It's kind of cool as the film goes on. It doesn't feel like we kind of get a grasp on why any of this happened with this town. It just did because they showed up here.
Now, the little girl being clairvoyant and having the quote-unquote gift of sight, like, in my opinion, completely unnecessary.
It doesn't do much for the story here, no. It's just there to kind of like, we have another character in the film.
And it kind of helps give them something to do.
Sure.
You know what I like? And again, they're grasping at straws. Like, how do we expand this story? I feel like they could have come up with better ways to establish that Isaac is the short one, right? Am I remembering that?
Yes.
Okay. So he's the leader of the group.
Yes.
And Malachi, Courtney Gaines, the redhead, who has a great... he's very weird looking.
Because he shows up later in The Burbs with Joe Dante.
Right.
He's one of the weird neighbors. He's even better look in that film because he's got all the mutton chops and everything.
Yeah.
He's fabulous. He's a fabulous actor.
Yeah, he's great. And he's got such a unique look.
Yeah.
He's perfect for this kind of role.
Yeah.
And what I wish that they would have done is spend more time establishing that, like,
Isaac them a little bit more.
Isaac was the leader of this cult. Malachi's like his stooge, his underling.
Yeah.
And like, let's go on and talk about their cult.
Right. Because there is a turn later on in the film that I don't feel like has enough setup for it that happens between the two of them.
Like, this is great imagery. Look at this thing.
That's creepy shit. You don't want any part of that. You just want to throw it out the window.
And that's where she's at here.
Yeah. You don't want no part. Here's a little bit that's like starts feeling a little bit of Texas Chainsaw bit because we got another gas station attendant guy.
And
and nothing happens with the protagonist about halfway through the film.
Every one of these like small town, like middle of nowhere plot movies, always like I don't know why, but this gas station attendant,
the way station ideas, like the one guy in the middle of nowhere that he can pivot the story one way or the other, and you never entirely trust them.
What is that? Like there was like a bug or a rodent or a lizard or something on the road. It was weird. Like they just happened to catch it. And yeah, there's none of this in the novel.
I bet.
I can't even call it a novel. It's a short story.
Yeah.
They can't even call it a novella, right? Like a novella has to be. I don't even know if there's a page count
criteria.
Like I don't know, but he's written novellas before, but they're 100 pages or something.
Yeah.
39 does not count, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's definitely short story territory.
Now, The Mist is over 100 pages. Okay. So that, I think, counts. It was included in this collection.
Okay.
But it's always like there's always like a long one at the front or the back, and then there's a bunch of like little short ones. And some of the short ones are like 4 pages. Like it's just a little like a thing that he came up with, which is cool because some of them are really creepy and great. But and some are mid-sized like this one.
Sure.
And I don't know. There's like this weird. Like, this is a weird character, and again, it feels like they just kind of came up with something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hemingford. Okay, so Hemingford, Nebraska is...
go for it.
Is a reference, a little Easter egg, right?
Yes.
To...
I read this.
a town in my favorite book of all time, The Stand, and home of Mother Abigail, the good guy, like the angel. She's the force of good in The Stand.
Okay.
And she's like 104-year-old black woman. That is basically the representative of good. But she lives in Hemingford Home, Nebraska, and it's full of corn. So that's a nice little... And now The Stand wasn't even like a production at this point. It was only a novel.
Yeah.
So that was a little wink and a nod to other Stephen King fans, And at this point that came out in 79. And it was the short version because they said, you can't make a novel that's 1,000 pages long. Like, nobody would read it.
You would show them.
Well, right.
Time again.
It wasn't until 1986 that he published It, which was the longest novel, of his career at that point. Actually, I'm pretty sure it goes on to hold the record. Because then in 1990... they re-released The Stand with the unabridged version. It's got an extra 300, 400 pages in it. And then it's completely updated to 1990 pop culture references. So he kind of rewrote it. I mean, not really, but
he revised it.
He updated it.
Now I got some room to actually flex myself.
Right.
And do what I like.
And so that is my favorite book of all time. And so nice little shout out there to The Stand. Nobody loves referencing Stephen King like Stephen King. No gas. And I want to say that this character is supposed to be like...
Yeah,
it's like a symbiotic relationship, right? Like
it's kind of like in the Hills Have Eyes remake. The gas station guy's kind of brokered a deal in a certain way. He's not entirely comfortable with it, but he's kind of like...
He's got
nowhere else to go, so he's kind of trapped in this situation where he's kind of have to do what they say, or he's going to have a lot of problems with them.
And he's talking like there was like some sort of god of like
this whole he who walks behind the rose type of thing, which is they kept morphing the idea all around and everything in production, and they were originally doing like a concept like I think it was originally written as like some green monster with red eyes or some nonsense, but they kept changing things, and it's like we didn't describe it in the script, and the production designer does something different, and we just said, fuck, we'll do it with special effects.
Well, yeah,
it's random,
and it's bad.
Random elemental qualities of force of nature shit. And
in the short story, I'm pretty sure there is reference to He Who Walks Behind the Rose, but it's conceptual.
Yeah.
And it's less is more. So it's like, okay, kids worship a mysterious deity in the corn, and that's it.
Yeah.
And the reader is left to create that in their mind.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And had they just done that here, they could have done it.
Sure, yeah.
I think they could have very easily just said, these kids are doing weird shit, and they're worshiping a god in the corn, and not shown it to you.
And again, I heard with that remake, they kind of removed supernatural stuff and made it more closer to just the regular what you're describing,
sure,
more ambiguous type of thing. They're not coming out outright and saying all this whole supernatural nonsense.
This makes me want to watch the remake. I'm very interested now. I've never watched it because this left such a bad taste in my mouth.
Sure.
And I think they're working on a new one, right?
It's one that's been delayed. It's like it had like a limited theatrical release like 2 years ago, and it's like it still hasn't landed a home video distributor or something. I don't know.
And it's a prequel to this.
I believe it's to this.
So it's like a requel. It's that requel kind of mentality.
Because it's still called just Children of the Corn, unless they slap a subtitle on it.
I don't think they did.
I don't know.
Is this guy somebody? I feel like I've seen him before.
He's in Predator. He's the general at the beginning and very end of the film that talks with Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers about the mission.
Okay.
That's the only thing I've ever seen him in.
Okay.
He's got these weird eyes where it's like, they got to be like really deep brown because it just looks all pupil.
I feel like I've seen him in something else, though. I'm gonna have to look up his filmography at some point.
R.G. Armstrong.
And they've got this weird, like, in the clouds,
they're doing some
do
kind
this
of optical effect. It's not terrible. It's definitely coming off kind of a little soft on this transfer.
For 1984, it probably looked pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
sure you couldn't tell crap on VHS or anything.
Right.
Even DVD probably didn't show up much, but... There's one thing
I don't necessarily love the idea of them like getting lost in the
corn stalks.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know how exactly you just turn into the corn stalks off the road.
Yeah, it's weird, right? It's weird. And why did they kill the gas station attendant? Because they let these people into their town?
Something, I don't know.
Like, that's weak.
They get it explained later on.
That's thin.
Yeah, they're just... I don't know. But... It was the odd thing. I mean, Linda Hamilton did an interview, and she had a fine time doing the film. But watching her performance and the whole thing, it felt it wasn't terribly good. She feels a little wafy.
Yeah, I could see that.
She's doing this very soft voice that doesn't feel like she's like projecting an acting performance as much. I don't know. Phil Horton is fine in this whole thing. He's good. He's at least got a sort of assertive quality to take charge of the situation that kind of works well.
Yeah, I mean, he is making a decision.
Yeah.
Like, I like that, you know.
He would end up going on to TV more.
He looks familiar, yeah.
Well, he was in that 90s series, 30-something.
Oh, okay.
He had this big, long head of hair. It looks gorgeous. And then he was later in the short-lived show Brimstone with John Glover, which I absolutely love that show. And
I've never seen that.
he plays Ezekiel Stone, who's a New York cop. His wife gets raped. He hunts down the guy who did it, kills him, and then a month later he dies. Goes to hell. 15 years later, the devil brings him back to Earth to hunt down 113 souls that escaped from hell.
That's kind of a neat concept.
It got canceled after 13 episodes.
Is that a full season?
Half a season.
Oh. Are they half-hour shows?
It's
full hours?
Full-length drama. I love it. I bought a bootleg DVD
oh, like a DVD
set at
set.
a con.
That's fun.
Because they never released it.
This is very creepy.
Mm-hmm. He's got a great affectation. Franklin Isaac does. The fact that he's 24 makes him kind of works for the character in a certain way. That
a little bit, yeah.
That the actor is older, but he appears younger in that regard. So it's like there's just a certain way of how he handles it and how he presents himself that feels a lot more seasoned to a degree.
The Blue Man.
Yeah, because apparently there was a whole another opening sequence because again, they slaughter everyone at the diner or whatnot.
Right.
And then this cop who comes in, as we get into they tell the story later on towards the climax, that this cop or something like that came in and was going to try to burn everything out, everything. They shot the sequence, but then they cut it from the film.
Of course they did. You'd think that if they had to spend all that money on King, they would have just not shot it and save the money.
Yeah, no, there's no.
Okay, so they want to sacrifice the Outlanders, and they need this psychic girl to tell them that they're coming. Like what?
It's thin. It's thin. You really don't need to.
It's anorexic, as Murtaugh would say.
Yes.
It's a great '70s yellow.
Yeah,
car.
It's a Buick.
Buick, yeah. Now we're probably a third of the way into
40 minutes into the film. They're still driving the car.
Right, which I mean, I'm trying to think back. It's been a minute since I read the story, but it was maybe a third of the way into the story where they get to the town.
So pages, yeah.
They get into the town and it feels deserted, and they need to investigate. And I do think, if I'm remembering correctly, I do think that they split up in the story, which makes sense because their marriage is falling apart, and
that makes sense for that. Not here, where they don't have no goddamn conflict with the dam.
Right.
I don't know why you would remove that. Because they've got nothing to work. They've got no.
Right.
There's nothing happening between these characters.
That would be a natural.
It gives it an arc.
Right, a conflict.
Because, again, if they're breaking up and they're argumentative, and then she gets in peril and he has to try to save her. Even if they're changing the ending or keeping it the same, that still creates something like...
It gives them something to do.
Yeah, it gives them something to do. And it would give, what's his name? Horton's character a little bit of an arc. Okay, I'm combative, the thing is falling apart. We're done with each other. But then they go through this thing and he's got to kind of be like, okay... I'm not that callous of a person. I've got to at least do this to try to save her, stuff like that. It's at least of a standard character arc.
Let's go back to our discussion about screenplay. Now, one of the check boxes that you need for a perfect screenplay is what's called the theme.
Yes.
Not the theme is known in like a book, but the theme in a screenplay is, as you were describing it, the character arc, where the person goes through a change and has a different outlook at the end than they did at the beginning. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be cliche or, it doesn't, like, there's all kinds of different types of themes. But, like you were saying, if they were breaking up and he decides at the end that maybe the marriage is worth saving because she's in peril.
Right.
That would count.
Right.
That's a theme.
Yeah.
That would check a box.
Yeah.
On a good screenplay.
Yeah.
Not to say that you have to have all the check boxes, but when there's a movie that you get to the end and you go, God damn, that was a perfect movie, it has checked all the boxes. Yes. Now, these are literal boxes to check on a math problem of a screenplay. Screenplays are math problems. And there are, perfect movies out there that you go, I loved the movie, you can't quite articulate why. It's because all of those boxes were checked. And this one, like you were saying, it kind of falls flat because they don't have any inner conflict between them. And thus far, 40...
We're halfway through the film now.
So, the midpoint that we've covered ad nauseum, midpoints.
Yeah.
Like here, it's almost like them discovering the problems of the town is the midpoint.
Yeah, that feels way too late.
It feels way too late, right. And...
But even then, once they get there, they're not really adding anything. Even if they moved it up, they still don't have anything else to do with it because it's just like a bunch of... It just like ends up being a cat and mouse chase through... in and out of hiding places in the entire town. They don't really do anything with that.
Right, like the added layer of them discovering the town, but also also one of them being kidnapped or I don't know. Like there's ways that they could have done it.
I mean, one way you could have done it the same way King was setting up. You just start out with these two characters, then once they get into town, start discovering these things, you backfill the story. That gives something in the second act to kind of like for them to discover along with the audience. Because if just have them sit down and hear the exposition of stuff we already saw, then you're back in the bad screenwriting realm.
Right.
So we can't have them get the reactions of what's going on, learning what's going on, even though they tell us again what's going on. It's just.
I do feel like they need.
It would almost be creepier, kind of like a little bit at a time, finding out things are kind of amiss and things a little strange, a little weird, and so like we already know it, and we're just waiting for the characters to find out what we already know, and you hate that.
I do hate that, but it's not as
egregious in this setup here,
right? Because they haven't explained to us what the cult is about.
Right, as I was saying earlier, it's like. Things just happen because they showed up. It doesn't really give an explanation for what the reason is behind the cult, what they really are all about. Just like it's just there,
right? And you don't necessarily have to explain everything,
right? But it at least has to have a feeling of what the edict is behind it. We just know it's like okay, we just do what. It tells Isaac something what they should do, and he tells them to do. Is like you just need a parameter of what the heck it's about.
It's also helpful as an audience member, a viewer, to be like learning. Like it's always helpful to learn things as you go, and I feel like we're not learning anything.
Right. Again,
granted, neither are they. But
exactly the problem of the story here, because again, like a Chainsaw Massacre film, we're 45 minutes in. Nothing really has kind of happened to the characters except one minor incident to divert them off their original path.
Right. Which, again, it gives them an objective.
Yeah. But now they're meandering.
Right. And that's a second act problem. Right. That's, again, nobody has a problem writing a first act. Every person listening to this right now has thought of, oh, you know what? Wouldn't it be cool if there was a movie about such and such and this happens to them? And you go, okay, that's awesome. Then what?
Yes.
There's your second act. Then what is the second act?
You need a series of things to occur.
Right.
Not just one thing, because you got a lot of space of time to
you got an hour.
Deal with the characters and find the conflicts and find the turns of the story where there's adversity and there's ups and downs and dramatic highs and lows.
And this would be a lot creepier if we knew more about the kids and the cult. And
right, it's
like all we've really seen is one kid preaching to all the rest of the kids and talk of sacrifice.
Yeah, and some slicey stuff.
Yeah, a little bit.
Without much context.
Right.
No, you don't know why it's happening. It just is happening.
Yeah,
really.
and yeah, again, you don't always have to know why, but like, less is more.
When you're coaching on 50 minutes in the film,
I feel like
a little
why is helpful.
You gotta give us a little bit of little meat.
So, if we say the midpoint of this movie is they get to town,
that ain't nothing.
That's not a good midpoint.
Not when they've driving around in circles for 25 minutes.
Like them getting into peril would have been a good midpoint. Them discovering that evil is afoot.
Yeah.
That would have been at least something to go on.
Yeah, they could have any number of things. If they're actually after to get them to kill them because they're not welcome around here, they could have done something like.
Look, things aren't happening fast enough. He said that was his own line. You're goddamn right.
I'm stealing from the Hills of Eyes again because remember in Hills of Eyes they lay out the spike thing and they blow out the tires and everything. Do that here.
Right. Do something.
Do something.
Now, we're not encroaching on Halloween 5, do something.
No, God, no.
But, available in the archives now, it's the best commentary we've ever done.
Logical something.
Right. Now that we're, over 100 deep here, we gotta throw out some
backlog.
Right.
Back catalog.
Okay, so here they're splitting up. Now, splitting up might have been a decent midpoint as well. Because it creates conflict. Not conflict, but it creates potential.
Yeah. A wider potential for things to occur.
Right.
They split up. Something can happen to them. Something can happen to him. Something can happen to her.
Right.
And they're separated so they can't rely on one another.
Right. And now, I'm not saying
vulnerability in the story.
I'm not saying that's a good midpoint, but I'm saying that would be a midpoint that you could at least call a midpoint of worthy of something.
Right. There's just not enough drama happening at this point in time.
I get that she's... I don't understand why she's clairvoyant or how that's relevant to anything, but having, having her draw a picture and then the female character, Hamilton, Vicky, go, oh my God, you've drawn a picture of my husband in danger or something that would have been kind of a cool little twist.
Right.
I'm not sure what she ends up drawing here. I don't recall, but
I don't know.
So in the story, it's been a minute, but I recall that they split up and he investigates and finds some sort of documentation of the history of the town.
Okay.
And learns that, I don't know if it's birthdays or and it might have been in the church, it might have been in the library. There's some sort of volumes of documents that show birthdays that lead him to learn that everyone basically gets sacrificed when they turn to an adult.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Which is why there's no adults in the town. Now, logic says...
They come up on that at some point here. I don't know. Logic says,
how do you ever create new children if no one ever lives long enough to become an adult to become pregnant?
Right. That's a tough window. It's
kind of
if you want to get further into it, it's like you don't have a doctor here to make sure the birth goes down right. And
right. There's a lot of problems. Attrition would eventually wipe out everything.
Yes.
Which, in theory, is kind of a cool concept. The kids ultimately are... The town goes extinct.
Yeah.
Or... I don't know, but anyway, so they realize that adults aren't welcome, and you sacrifice yourself when you turn 18 or 19, 19 somewhere in there, and then that's it. And I feel like in the story, he learns this and then realizes that she's been captured and is being carried off down the street.
Right.
And he also gets captured. And that's it. Roll credits.
Yeah, they're done.
The story's over.
Yeah, they don't survive.
They don't survive, and you're left to kind of wonder, it's like that, the hypothetical ending. Which is cool.
Which is also good on a short story, I feel.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And, here they said they need, it's got to be longer. You got to have more shit for them to do, even though they haven't really done a lot.
Yeah, I was looking it up. I think it's the cinematographer on this thing. He goes right off of this and shoots Friday the 13th Part 4, final chapter.
Oh, really?
For Joe Zito, and he shoots like Joe Zito's like next 2 or 3 films after that.
Yeah. Friday 4 looks fantastic, and
really,
actually
really
the
good.
cinematography is not bad on this.
Yeah,
he seems to be a very talented person.
Double checking. Yeah, he does. Yeah. 98 credits on this filmography.
False gods. That's kind of a cool. Like, Stephen King loves the idea of religion, and he uses religion in so many of his stories. Because he realizes that it is the cause of so much peril in the world.
Oh, yeah.
That it is the perfect, like, story device.
Mm-hmm. He plays with a lot of characters you think are probably the devil here and there and stuff like that. I mean, that happens in The Stand. It's like Rick Flag in The Stand, is it?
Randall Flagg,
Randall Flagg.
Well, and that entity, who is also the same entity in the Dark Tower, is, basically the force of evil, the devil.
Yeah.
And in The Stand, the Mother Abigail character is the force of good, and that is...
Yeah.
It's a battle of good versus evil, which is what the imagery is on the front of the book.
Yeah. They're just all needful things. Max von Sydow's character in that is that's pretty fucking blatant, especially in the film. It's very freaking blatant. It's like within 2 minutes, he's the devil.
Right.
They're not playing it maybe a little bit coy, but it's
Needful Things is a fantastic novel of, kind of this bartering. What will you pay?
What's your price?
Right. Everybody's got a price.
For the $1 Million Man.
Yeah, you got it. And
watching the film was it's both too long and too short.
Agreed.
It's
too long for the wrong reasons.
It's too long. It's too long for the type of film you're trying to make, but it's too short for what it should be. You definitely need to tell, they cut about an hour out of this thing. They should have cut about maybe another half an hour to make it work better.
Needful Things would be a great, 10 hours miniseries, yeah.
It's it's got great performances overall. It's just it's just kind of there.
Yeah, he kind of went out and did some shit on his own there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a sprinkling of that little dissension there, bud.
Interlopers is a great word.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that they still have not given us enough
there's not enough
about this cult.
Yeah, the balance is a little off. I mean, typically you want to follow the protagonist, but it's the more interesting thing is that Isaac Malachi thing going on and have that, because again, as we get into, there's that power shift later on between the two characters. You'd like to have more substance moving up to that.
Now, one of the check boxes in a screenplay is opposition.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to have some sort of opposition, which in this case is the cult, the child cult.
Yes.
Now, just telling us that they exist is...
Not enough.
Right. At some point here, we really should have seen... that's a neat little effect.
Yeah.
At some point, we should have seen their handiwork. Maybe they should have shown us sacrificing the cop.
Yeah, well, why'd you cut that out of the film?
You know, for time, I guess? I don't know.
It's like it's a horror film, but there's not a lot of horror going on.
Now this...
I mean, this is unsettling. But...
Right, and unsettling is fine. I'm okay with unsettling.
Mm-hmm. But it's not a scare fest of a film.
But had this been the cop scene at the beginning, like an hour, half hour ago... Well, I mean, we're an hour in.
Yeah, we're an hour in. It doesn't quite feel like it.
Granted, she's in peril,
right.
And that's a cool shot of her realizing what's happening. But again, like, are they sacrificing for this God? Are they sacrificing for Isaac? Are they... I don't know enough. I don't...
Right.
Tell me more.
Right.
Make me want to know more.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And a child shall lead them is a great tagline.
Mm-hmm.
And that may actually be from the Bible somewhere.
Yeah, I clearly misinterpreted for the cult.
And I feel like that is somewhere in the short story, that line.
I'm sure.
There was some sort of record, a logbook, maybe during the sacrifice. Is that what's happening here? This gentleman has turned 19 or 18, and now they're going to kill him. I mean, this is the kind of information that we needed 20, 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
You know, them getting to town and splitting up. I feel like this should have happened at the same time as
they should have rolled in and just stumbled in on all this stuff.
Right, and she should have been taken right away, which they kind of were.
Yeah.
But if...
And you just bide time saying, like, we sacrifice him at nightfall or something like that.
Right.
That's when we have to do it.
And, a line of dialogue here, there, and yon is enough. But him discovering this at the same time of her...
Getting put up on the scarecrow cross.
Right, and, like, this was a cool moment in the story where, he's learning what's happening.
Right.
And again, those are plot points that drive forward a movie.
Right.
Because he's learned this and is, stabbed, like, that is creating his need to, A, defend himself, B, get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah. I also feel like, man, there should just be, like, more kids.
Yes.
Could be just swarming.
Right. I feel like there's a little bit of a missing element here of the parent the adults thinking that they know better.
Yeah.
Which is a very, I mean, the entire Nightmare...
Talked about it a ton of times.
The entire Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is based on that premise.
Yeah.
That the adults, the parents, think they know what's best for the kids and therefore don't listen to the kids.
Yeah.
Now, there could have been an element here of these two trying to parent.
Right.
And I'm not saying that I'm just going to, well, I guess we're an hour in and all we've done is spew ideas of how it could have been better.
Because this film doesn't have a whole lot of ideas of its own.
I guess what our point is here is we're trying to explain to you, our loyal listeners, why structurally this doesn't work.
Right.
And
again, now we're just getting to, like, chase scene, and
And this right here is basically how the novel ends, or the story.
Okay.
Like,
he gets his eyes gouged out or some
right,
nonsense.
and he comes out of the church or the library or whatever, and she's being carried down the road by the kids, and he gets attacked, and
very fatalistic.
Right.
I mean, the thing of introducing ideas like that previous scene earlier gives the time for the ideas to simmer in the story and have characters address them and have some kind of development of the ideas. And so, like, you just find something else out, then there's an action scene, there's some stuff. It's just like, I don't know.
Well, right, because I've only learned, as a viewer of this movie, I've only learned 5 minutes ago that when you turn of age, you sacrifice yourself for the cult. Now, had I known that 20 minutes ago, I feel like my opinion of the town would be a lot different.
Right, you could have even set that up at any point in time in the film. He doesn't have to walk in on it. You could set something up that you don't really explain, but then he stumbles in later on in the same sort of situation,
right,
sacrificing another kid, and kind of like, okay, you set it up as something that's scary and unsettling and disturbing. Then you could have him walk in on the situation where they're doing it to someone else, and then you get the information. You could have something like that happen. I think you just need to set more creepier elements earlier in the story, and then you can address them and get them more clearly conveyed of what's happening. Right.
And I'm not saying I dislike that the opening of the slaughtering of the town. However, I don't remember how that's come about in the story exactly, but how interesting would it have been for him to stumble upon a record where everybody died on the same day? Yeah. Like, for him to read that or something, as opposed to just showing it to us. Mm-hmm. Where, again, sometimes what you don't see is much creepier than what you do.
Yeah.
AKA the entirety of Halloween, the original 1978.
Sure.
What lurks in the shadows? What...
Mm-hmm.
Stop asking questions. That's all I've got is questions, kid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is this kid trying to also escape? Because that would have been...
Well, he's the narrator.
Oh, he's
Job.
He doesn't look any older than he did back 3 years ago.
Exactly. That's half the problem, too. You set up a thing that happened 3 years before, and it's like no one's had a growth spurt. I mean, I gotta ask, how old is Malachi right now? The actor's definitely older than what they're portraying in the film. He's gotta be.
Right. And I want to say that in the story, it's like he was getting ready to sacrifice or something.
Point, yeah.
And maybe he was living longer, like they let him live longer because he was higher up in the rank or something. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't know. This is happening too late for me.
Right. I mean, this all feels like it should have been the midpoint.
A little bit, yeah.
Him walking in on the congregation there, doing the whole thing. That would have been... If you had hit the kid and they go off on the journey, you finally get into town.
That's the end of your Act 1.
Mm-hmm. And then midpoint is they stumble in on the whole thing in the congregation with the sacrifice. That could be your midpoint. Then you move into this, and then you just kind of condense the first half and kind of expand the back half.
I also feel, is it just me, or do I feel like these two have been in conflict the entire time?
A little bit.
Should they not have been in concert for a while, and then you create a story element of them, a power struggle or whatever?
Well, that's my thing. It's like, we've got these two guys doing great performances, but there's nothing for any of the surrounding people to, like, everyone else just completely turns against Isaac. Now everyone's just with Malachi with no explanation. We don't see any dissension among the ranks of anyone to like, okay, we're just going to jump on his bandwagon and forsake this guy who's been leading us for years now. That's why I feel you need more with the cult in general.
Right,
to
there's no...
kind of have a little bit more than just the two main characters there.
It really does feel like a cult of two.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other background.
Right.
Only because they haven't explained to us anything.
Right.
Now, having a bunch of people do ridiculous things in the name of a god that they can't see and they just because they believe in it is kind of a social commentary for a different time.
Yeah.
But...
Well, I guess, like, where the fuck was involved the film was trying to, like, put over to, like, Iranian insurgents or some weird type of thing where religious zealots kind of take over the entire country or what the hell it is, and apparently, like, no one read this into the film whatsoever. And the producer or what the hell was like, oh, that's what I'm trying to turn this into and have it a commentary. It's like, no one read any of that into this film because it just is not, and it just doesn't have that.
What a giant mouth he's got.
Yeah.
Buck teeth.
Yeah, how? Again, he's so much more gangly in the Burbs, man. Oh.
Yeah, I've gone to conventions where they were sitting together and...
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool to see them, you know.
I'm sure they do a package photo deal and everything.
Yeah. No, at the time, when I first saw them, I think it was 2009, they, you know, it was $20 and you got an autograph and a picture for free.
Now it's $60.
Right. Yeah, it's you know, $30, $50 combo.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want both of them, it's $40, and $100 for a pro photo op with the two. You know what I mean?
And they'll be in the garb or something like that.
Sure. That fucking hat. I love that hat. That Amish hat or whatever it is.
Yeah. It was kind of a thing I was hitting. I was like, up until like the last 10 minutes, the whole film's daylight. It's just an unusual approach. Horror film, all daylight.
Which I'm fine with.
Yeah, I'm fine with. We brought it up at one point in time trying to figure out something that might have done that. I mean...
We also don't have a good enough explanation about these two. I guess a little bit, but it's come way too late to mean anything.
Right. Another problem with the voiceover is like, if you're going to have a voiceover narrator, they have to be almost constant in the film.
Right.
You can't have it at the beginning of the film, then show up like 50 minutes later, and you can't have it that way.
Well, it's never come back after the beginning.
No, because now he's an on-screen character. I mean, you can't do it that way. One, I didn't think it was very much necessary at all to begin with. Because they weren't really conveying much of anything in the voiceover narration to have much of an impact on what was going on.
All it does, really, having the kid voice over the beginning, all it does is tell me that he's going to live through the end.
Right.
It's like a spoiler almost.
Right.
Because clearly
how many times does the voiceover narrator die halfway through the film? It never happens.
Right. Now, there's an idea, like a Tarantino-esque idea that we could follow up on.
Someone could pull it off, but not the people involved with this film.
Right. But, like, he was reflecting back on that time in his life.
Right.
So, when is he reflecting back from? Present day? And is that after the events of this movie? Or is it... Like, again, we don't really know. That's a bad storytelling device.
Voiceover is usually like either almost like a verbal flashback type of thing, or it's internal monologue as the film progresses.
Sure.
That's usually what it is, and this was much more the flashback variety. Because he was saying everything pretty much in past tense.
I wish I knew more about this cult.
Mm-hmm. I looked him up. He was John Philbin. He was one of the ex-presidents in Point Break.
This guy?
Yeah.
Huh.
Good 6 years beforehand. But,
interesting that we've now covered this guy in 2 different commentaries on the channel. And here is where the movie really goes off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to, well, in the eyes of the filmmakers here, we had to have some sort of visual representation of he who walks behind the rose.
Yes.
And I'm not sure why we needed that, but they decided they did. And you're right. The way that the tables have turned here, and how all of a sudden everyone just said, "Oh, well, fuck Isaac."
Yeah. Out of fucking nowhere. And
here,
this isn't great.
This is not good at all.
No. Like I said, they were cutting stuff here and there about scenes and effect shots, and it's like those visual effects out of Hellraiser, man. Those weren't good either.
What is happening?
Yeah.
And like, this is conflict. Okay, I'm good with that, but
yeah, it just you see the potential with the story where you can formulate more thematic elements. They have more things to talk about with.
Maybe that's why they ended up with
it.
Maybe that's why they ended up with 16 sequels.
I'll fucking turn this into a franchise. I have no fucking clue.
I mean,
and apparently it's one of those franchises like there's no continuity.
No.
Apparently, like after a while, once like Dimension Films gets all their hands in it, and they're like, "We're going to make a film. We're going to have a cliffhanger ending, but the next one's like, we have different people involved with it. We're not going to deal with that. That never happened." Like 5 times they do this, and then they keep making them, and like, how the fuck you keep?
I will say,
no clue.
I almost prefer that than I do, like in Chainsaw, where they've remade and made the exact same movie 6 times. Mm-hmm. With no continuation. Like, they reference them as sequels, but none of them are actually predicated on the events of the ones that happened prior.
No. Because everything's just a sequel to the original film.
Unbelievable.
It's like 6 different continuities that involve 2 films.
It's more convoluted than Halloween. And meanwhile, he's just bitch-slapping old Courtney Gaines here.
Mm-hmm.
That is a handsome woman.
Some bowl cuts going around with the guys, too, man. It's not happening. It's not a Who's the barber in town?
Exactly.
Fire him. Put him up on the stakes.
Everybody's got the same haircut.
No. That's the worst thing about a cult. You got to have the same haircut. There's no freedom. And then he comes back in here.
Why?
Feels like halfway to a decent concept in this makeup job. It's like,
Well, and everything in this movie is halfway to a decent concept.
Yeah.
They've gotten... The premise is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And there really is no good...
Right.
I mean, at what point here... I guess the adults had a objective change at the midpoint, which was what? When they split up? When they got to town? What? I mean,
it's still the same objective. Find someone to tell you about the kid that we ran over.
Oh, we still don't know. Okay.
Well, I mean, that's when they split up. It's still him to go out to find someone to help them about the kid they ran over.
Right. Okay.
It still doesn't change.
So
anything.
that's still their objective.
How they go about it.
And they've got different problems to deal with along the way.
Yeah, and so they find the kid. Well, we don't want to leave the kid alone. We don't want to keep dragging the kid around town, so she'll stay with the kid, watch over the kid, and then he'll go find someone. So it's like, it still wasn't a piece of drama. I mean, and a few minutes ago, at least they have a good point there where it's like, he's addressing him as a cult. It's like, how can there be a religion that doesn't embrace compassion or stuff like that? It's like, you're worshiping a false god. You're just doing what this guy's telling you to do without anything to back it up.
Sure.
So it's like he's calling out Isaac as like a false prophet and all these different things. You're at least addressing the ideas, but again,
not well. And not early enough, and not well enough.
It's what you could have been doing the whole time, grappling with the idea.
So, getting back to one of our final points here in Screenwriting 101, one of the checkboxes that you need at the end is resolution to your objective. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't have to be successful.
Yeah.
And the audience doesn't necessarily have to know all the details. Mm-hmm. But
you just have to get to the other side of the situation.
Right. Now, do we, in this movie, get to the other side of the objective of tell somebody about, like, alert the authorities or whatever? I mean, I guess not.
Even at the end, I don't feel like they, like, really achieved as much as you'd think they'd want to achieve with it.
Because if...
Because you think, like, generally what they're trying to go for, like, the cult is evil, one way or another, abolish the cult somehow.
Well, if their objective is figure out what happened to the kid, and now, they guess they did. They figured out that he was trying to escape from the cult. Now, you can switch objectives.
Yeah.
That's fine. Usually that happens at a midpoint, by the way. So if the objective changed to, like, end the cult or, I don't know.
Right.
It's fuzzy.
Yeah, right now it's just survive.
Survive, right.
But the only way they can survive is try to destroy everything. Now, they've gotten a few extra people to kind of like, okay, your words make sense because these two are trying to destroy each other over random freaking fanatical shit.
So
let's just get out of here.
The problem is resolving itself.
We're willing to join on you and get out of here because, you sound like you make some sense.
But that's also thin.
But it feels more like, again, it's all just too short window stuff. He makes a 45-second speech about religion and what it really should mean, and some people just join on to him because whatever.
Meanwhile, the Corn is attacking him.
Yeah.
Which, actually, what this does, this is counterproductive, in my opinion, because what this is doing is it's saying that there actually is an entity
controlling all
of it.
Yeah,
now,
elemental stuff.
How much better would it have been if it was just the crazy kids who believed it, but nothing actually existed?
Yeah.
You know,
that's creepier to me.
Belief in something and doing something because you believe it, without it actually being true, which is the basis of all religion. But like, that's creepy.
Yeah.
But now that you've got this supernatural element and it's attacked him,
you've removed the human element of it.
And you've
it's now
actually...
an abstract idea that's like can just do whatever you want it to do.
All you've done is justify the behavior of the kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is counterproductive to their objective.
Yeah. And again,
of which we also get no resolution.
And again, dealing with a human element here again, like just what I was just saying, and the whole thing was like, some kids just join on with them because it just makes sense in the moment. It's like, again, building up a dissension amongst the followers, if you spent more time doing that, and then you move certain things earlier in the film.
What the fuck is that?
That's a horrible effect is what that is.
Carry on.
But you move the stuff with the abducting Vicky and all this other stuff. You just move things earlier in the film where certain turns can happen that you can spend more time dealing with the situation. Like, maybe when she gets abducted and she tries to try to impart the same sort of ideals. And it starts getting through to some of them when they start seeing Malachi and Isaac are battling between one another, and the faith is kind of breaking here and there. That would kind of work better to more of a natural progression where everything starts breaking apart, and they kind of leave the two leaders to kind of like burn each other to the ground in a certain way, and they kind of like break off, and everything dissipates in the cult. That would make more sense. And so, like, he makes a short speech, and a couple of people just join on with him because whatever.
I completely agree with everything you said. And bad.
Even on VHS, that would look like dog shit.
So the idea is burn the corn?
Yeah.
And you kill the god?
Because they were saying like there was some minister came along and he was trying to burn the place down and reading passages from the Bible, and that was having some effect until they killed him.
Again, I do feel like having no actual supernatural being and only the belief in a supernatural being would be so much better.
Yeah.
And you could still go through this. The idea of
the symbol of what you
need, right?
Worshipping,
right? How do we
has to be destroyed,
right?
And apparently there was stuff in the script like, the crops were supposed to turn black and start rotting, but it's like, Linda Hamilton brought that up when they're shooting. It's like, isn't this stuff supposed to be happening right now? We don't have the money for that right now. We don't have the money for that anymore.
Burn the corn seems like a natural
right.
Solution.
Yeah.
To, a means to an end.
Yeah, symbolism. You can be as blatant about it as you like.
Right. But I'm saying it's a good plot device,
right.
like a way to because they have this belief in the corn. Because of that, the natural destroy the corn.
Yeah.
I get it. That's fine. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels like the shit comes out of the corn
because they told them. Because the kid said the minister did it, and we didn't get to see
What is this shit?
Yeah,
What
so
is
bad.
this?
It's really bad. And then it kind of
fizzles out, and now they killed it? That's it? They killed the god?
That's why I feel like it's not a very definitive ending. It's like, it doesn't feel like he did anything. I don't know. It's a weird supernatural entity that has no boundaries of what it stands for, how to destroy it, how it came about, where it came from.
How big is its territory?
Right.
If it's a god, doesn't it encompass all corn and all, you know what I mean? But they literally burned a 30-foot square.
Right. Where's the rest of the cult? I mean, there were a lot more kids than this. And they had kids helping in the barn. Now those kids have disappeared.
There were, little fat girls in coveralls in the street holding sickles.
Yeah.
Where are they?
Yeah. Apparently, they tacked this on during production for some bizarre reason. I don't know, they just wanted to get this extra scare in the car or whatnot, but Linda Hamilton was saying to produce, it's kind of stupid for our characters to try to go back to this car because of all this other shit. And the producer said, well, I want the audience to think you're stupid. I don't know. I just don't. It's just not a good way to respond to an idea like that. Have some intelligent way of putting it through. It's like, if you just want an extra scare, it's like you can create something else. I don't know.
You can do more.
It's a very frivolous, tacked on piece here. You easily could have ran credits over the burning corn and it would have been just as fine.
I do like the idea of there being a...
Yeah, still a believer trying to retaliate.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Ow, fuck.
Ow.
God damn. Well, no shit. You slammed her head in the cage door like Ric Flair at 82 in Dallas. The end.
Yeah.
What?
How is that? I mean, it's such an unnecessary bit, completely.
Well, it's unfinished.
Well, right. There's no story necessity to it. It doesn't tie up anything. It doesn't tease anything.
They didn't kill her.
No.
I don't know. Maybe they did. I don't know. It's just everything's left to be... Meh.
Yeah, it's very limp.
Bruce Paul?
Not great.
No. You know, they couldn't afford Tony Caesar to do fire stunts on this, so...
No, they can't afford good effects. They can't afford Tony.
Granted, this came out
Prior to the
nightmare, the famed nightmare burn. Guy Olds.
That's a half-finished name.
Bob Good is a terrible name too, though. Just for the record. What's your name? Bob Good?
You go Bobby Good. Bobby.
Bobby Good, right?
Bobby Good's better.
Bobby Good is better.
That role is a little bit nicer.
100%. Cricket is a bad first name for the set decorator. This is a gold mine here. This credits. Rosemary Weeblehouse is a great name too. But anyway, so how do you take 39 pages and milk it and have it be good?
I mean, you've brought up other short stories that King has done before that were made into fabulous films.
Right. They weren't that short.
Okay.
But
a little more going for them.
Right. For example, The Body, which turned into Stand By Me. Mm-hmm. Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, which turned into the greatest movie ever made. Those are all 100-page, 120-page novellas.
That can translate.
Right. Those work well. I don't recall any real short. Like The Mist is over 100 pages, and that turned into a feature length that everybody likes but you.
I don't know how long The Night Flyer was. I mean, it was a cheap HBO movie or whatnot, but it ran 90 minutes.
Right.
Okay.
I don't recall either.
It worked okay as a 90-minute cheap horror flick, and Miguel Ferrer was fabulous in the performance. It's Richard Dees and everything. So
there are some out there, like Trucks that turned into Maximum
Overdrive, which
or
again, a film like this where they kick his screenplays like, I'm going to prove you I can do it better.
Right. And
he's coked to the nines.
Oh, it's the peak. Maybe we'll have to get to that later on in this year of our... we've got a good streak going here.
I mean, I like Emilio.
I'm down.
I'm an Emilio fan.
So, a Graveyard Shift was another one that's a terrible movie that was based on a short.
Okay.
But I don't know. It's a great concept again.
Yeah.
He's so good at writing these. Anytime that there's a short story it's short for a reason. It's succinct and it's good because it's short.
Yeah.
And then you try to turn it into this and then you fuck it up.
Yeah.
So hopefully we've educated you on how to write a screenplay during this. If anything as good has come from this.
And in a normal franchise fashion, the second film is called The Final Sacrifice.
Oh, get out of here.
And then there's 9 more movies after that.
Fuck that.
No more. That's the end of it.
Thank you for listening to us rant for 90 minutes.
Rant on our screenwriter seminar here. So guys, thanks much, and be back soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.